and Portland, and just trying to create the movement. And here we are 4 years later. I'm here. And of course, we have a product, DKube. So DKube, consider DKube as what Red Hat is to Linux. DKube is to Kubeflow and MLflow. So we're providing a supported product built on top of Kubeflow and MLflow, not just Kubeflow. So we do use MLflow as well. And we add some additional capabilities on top, some of which will probably be contributed back to Kubeflow. In fact, there is a talk later this afternoon you may hear about. Some may not, just like any other distribution of Red Hat or something like that. So our goal was, when we started DKube, was to make it easy for people to put together Kubeflow no matter what environment they're in. So they could, on-prem was the hardest one. When you talk about government, the US government, defense, they're all on-prem. And especially in super secret Pentagon locations and all that. So how do they do Kubeflow? So that's a good example. You can't go to AWS, and AWS GovCloud does not have all the capabilities of regular AWS. So it doesn't exactly work. And they don't want to put everything on AWS either, because they have other clouds too. So they come to us. Okay, so that's an example. So let's go to the next slide. So what we have done is we've taken core of Kubeflow and MLflow, and a lot of the questions and requests people were making, saying it's hard to put it together, the UI is not that great. We have addressed those challenges over the 4 years. So we have our own UI, which is borrowed from Kubeflow UI. So you will not see the Kubeflow's base UI in our product. It's our own UI. But we also have an SDK. So people don't have to use the UI. They can integrate with our product using the SDK. And what we have added on top of that is model versioning, model data lineage, and model catalog. And of course, model metrics, that comes from MLflow. But the model catalog, the idea here is to not have models that are not ready to go to production accidentally escape in a production. Or so there's a gatekeeping function called model cataloging. So that's one thing we have here, which is, so we have our own database that manages that. There's also lineage. So all the lineage of every experiment that is run, we have complete metadata stored of who ran it, what code version, what data set version was used. So all the versioning of that. And you can take a data set version and know from that what models were created from this data set version, or vice versa. You can go that way. We have added model monitoring, which is one of the hardest requests. And by the way, these came from our customers. We didn't think it on the fly. So we've been working with various customers around the world over the 4 years. And so model monitoring has been one of the hardest requests. And there's a session at 1:30 from my colleague who we're going to talk to you about model monitoring. We'll show you how we are doing it. And we are considering to contribute into Kubeflow going forward. So that's an example. And then the bottom part here is another one is HPC and Slurm. So in a lot of research institutions, especially in government, very large Fortune 100 companies, there is HPC infrastructure, and they want to use that to schedule their jobs. They want to use that to do their data prep. They won't use it for inference, but they will use it for data prep, for training jobs. And so we have Slurm and HPC, and actually LSF as well. By the way, IBM's LSF is also pluggable with our product too. So we have that. And then the last one is integration with enterprise CI/CD authentication systems. So our promise is, if you plan with us properly on the infrastructure to install DKube, we can get you up and running in 2 days. And you can have users onboarded, and they will do real data science, and they won't have to worry about installing Kubeflow and getting libraries and all that, and integrating with their authentication systems and all that. It's all ready to go as a finished product. We don't provide a service yet. It is a subscription model. So you have to put it together and maintain it on your own, but we do provide support. Next slide. So in terms of the hardware infrastructure, so we work on AWS. In fact, some of our early customers started in AWS. We are big on on-prem. So as I mentioned before, on-prem is very important to many companies, especially in defense, and even in payroll and accounting, we are finding customers who want to maintain their own infrastructure, mainly because of cost. And then GCP. So we work on GCP as well. Microsoft, we can work, but that's where we have the fewest activity and the smallest activity. But we have partnerships with VMware Tanzu. So that's the Kubernetes distribution, and Nutanix Carbon. So they are big into defense, and they are big into government, and they are in their data center, and we plug into their infrastructure, and bingo, next day you have Kubeflow with DKube running in those installations. So that's what we do. Next slide. So our product is a role-based product. So any user who is onboarded has to have one or many of these roles. So there is, of course, an operator who manages the overall infrastructure. No, they are the ones who onboard users, but this is data engineer, data scientist, ML engineer, production engineer. So every user has to have one or all four of these roles or any combination. And based on that, they can perform certain functions. So a data scientist, if somebody is allowed to be just a data scientist, they may not be able to put models in production using our product. They have to have production ML engineer role to put models in production. Unless they are production engineer, they cannot monitor models. So it has to do with accountability, and governance of the things. So a lot of companies, they have very strict rules about who can manage models and who can develop models, and accountability of the work that is done. So that's that. Now, MLflow, we use MLflow a lot for experiment tracking purposes because that's in model registry. Those are the two areas where we find MLflow to be quite compelling. And I know there have been some talks about having some better integration with MLflow of Kubeflow, and maybe we can have some conversations in that regard with whoever wants to talk to us. How am I doing on time? I got 5 more minutes. What I'm gonna say? Okay. All right. Let's go to the next slide. So in terms of the use cases, so this is where I'm going, and this is again for Jeremy and David. For those of you who do not probably know, this is some examples of where our product is being used. So we had pharmaceuticals as one of the major verticals where we have been used. There is one of the hottest genomics company I cannot name, is just getting started with our product for some really cool work. Aerial surveillance, retail analytics, healthcare, especially in healthcare, what we are finding, people already have a lot of models in insurance, but they want to monitor those models and see how well they're performing. And in healthcare, every plan goes by state. So Blue Cross of Arizona, Blue Cross of Colorado. Well, they have different models for each state. So they all have to be monitored on a state-by-state basis. And that's what our product actually allows them to do using DKube Monitor, which you will learn more about at 1:30. Payroll services optimization. This is a company that is doing payroll services. Many of you probably use some of these companies, and they do a lot of analytics from the data they have of all the clients. And they are also, it was a very interesting setup. They have NLP applications. They have, of course, just the regular analytics of people's payroll data, and also customer support and things like that as well. So I'm here today, rest of the day, if you want to talk more, I'll be here probably tomorrow as well. And we are based in San Jose. That's where our company is based. And we have an R&D center in India where we do a lot of our development. And we're really excited to be part of this community and to see people coming together in person after COVID. I mean, this will really help. So that's all. Any questions?
We did have a question. We have someone asking, what does the D in DKube stand for?
Okay.